Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Monday, July 21st. I think PTF back with you, still rocking the Airstream here in Sonoma County, getting ready to head to the big city, San Francisco, later today. Just about a week, be back. Not sure if I'm going to be in the bunker or visiting Port Washington near the new Belmont Park for a week or two, but we'll see. Future locations, TBD. But one thing that we know is we have some great racing to talk about. Bit old school in this show. We're going to spend some of the time looking back, some of the time looking forward. To do it with me, I introduce a man coming to you from the same location he's been for weeks and is going to be for the next several weeks. That's Saratoga Springs. He's hoodie on. He's Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, buddy?
Well, yeah. So last night I went fishing yesterday, and so I with Austin on the boat. Chad Brown and his brother Todd took us fishing. People don't know Chad used to be competitive fisher.
Yeah, he's a super fisherman. So yeah, we've talked.
So he really Austin's like super into it. So we went out for 4 hours yesterday. It was great. But my hair, when I got home, I washed my hair, but I didn't put anything in it. So here's what it looks like. I guess it kind of looks the same. It doesn't look too crazy.
It's a little, it's a wilder version of what you usually
I'm just gonna rock it. I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah,
they call you UT Big Hair for a reason, and you're living up to it today. This is your equivalent of Michelle Yu from the car that day with the beach hair, which I noticed she's kept. She got so many compliments on it. Maybe it'll be the same for you, my friend.
We'll see. We will see.
We will look back at a little bit of what went on at Saratoga last weekend, but I want to start with what I think is the headline. We got a new player on the 3-year-old scene, Baby Vino, down on the Jersey Shore in the Haskell. My first reaction, I was surprised. I mean, I wrote nice things about the horse. I was fully expecting this to be a horse that could have his day in the sun, but I was a little dismissive when I did my write-up for attheraces.com, saying he'll, something to the effect of he'll win a big race at some point, but maybe this is too much too soon. I don't know. Did I overrate his competition on the day? Probably, certainly in terms of all the nice things I wrote about for Further Ado, who was a total no-show. I can't wait to talk to you about this race, brother. But what the 100 buyer speed figure here and makes me think that maybe my being a little dismissive of this form as they crossed the wire was too harsh. Give me your overview of this year's Haskell, and then we'll pick the bones a bit.
Well, if you were harsh, I'm going to be in big trouble. Look, I mean, with all due respect and love, I don't think there's a new player on the 3-year-old scene. I think that a not very good horse won a not very good race of a division of 3-year-olds where I'm not 100% sure how good they are. I feel like the figure probably was projected to a certain extent, right? You got horses that can run in that arena. This horse wins. You'd like to think the racetrack changed a little bit throughout the day. Probably not the easiest day to make a figure. I would want absolutely no interest in that horse running against the Golden Tempos of the world, going 1.25 miles and the Travers. Yeah, I mean, I just think that, that happens from time to time where you have some of these big races, these grade 1 pluses that have results that don't make you feel warm and fuzzy. And Baby Vino is one that didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy.
I guess, yeah, by dismissing the figure, your comment about Golden Tempo makes sense because, of course, 100 faster than what Golden Tempo has run to this point. I do want to say it's a terrific training job by Lindsay Schultz, and another big race being won for the first time, I believe in the first time in its history, by a female trainer. That's a great storyline to come out of this. I'm intrigued just because he's on such an upward trajectory still. I'm not going to be dismissive. Depending on how things go coming into the Travers. And maybe that's less of being a figure monkey, which I've been accused of and isn't entirely wrong, and more of just not fully trusting a horse like Golden Tempo. But we have time to argue about that. I want to go back now and look at, or not look at so much as talk about Napoleon Solo, your old pal, who I thought you could argue he ran the best race to me. Let's just put it that way. And maybe I'll make this comment and you can either take the bait or tell me I'm in the corner eating paste. I feel like his rider cost him this race. And if he had just Paco had focused on riding Napoleon Solo and not riding Further Ado and to a lesser extent Baby Vino, I think he probably wins the race pretty easily if he gets to that rail and goes on with it. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's hard to. I try not to, with absolutes, talk about someone's decisions when I am looking at the decisions from, over 1,500 miles or over 1,000 miles and through a 2D television screen, right? But I will say that Paco's reputation, the accumulation of it sure seems like he was being naughty. It's starting to get to be a little bit much. And, we've all played sports with those types of folks who just seem to kind of black out a little bit and maybe cross that line a little bit much in the spirit of competition, not necessarily in looking at it in terms of trying to put someone in danger or hurt somebody. But I sit next to Richie Migliori a lot and get to hear his perspective, who has been in that position before, who has been dropped by irresponsible rides and has had to lay in a hospital bed, wondering if he'd ever walk again, wondering if he'd ever see his children again. So I can use that as part of my decision-making process. But like, Paco's becoming a little problematic. Or maybe he's been problematic and it's just continuing to show up. But, yeah, I agree. Ride your horse, not the other ones.
But let's talk about it just specifically in the context of this race. I didn't mean to fully open the Paco bashing can of worms. Not that it's inappropriate, but I mean, just tactically speaking, he rode, I guess you'd justify the way he rode in the early part of the race if it was a bad rail day. It sure didn't seem like a bad rail day. Like, why didn't he just try to seize that advantage?
I think the argument is for the guy in Paco Lopez who wins the most races at Monmouth, you'd like to think that he would be a little bit more in tune to it being, I think if anyone was going to argue if it was a sort of a rail day, it would be a good rail day, not a bad one. And so getting so caught up in that moment to then not take advantage of doing what gives your horse the best chance of winning, to win, it's that's what it felt like to me.
Makes sense. Let's move on to another result on that Haskell undercard, where we saw a tour de force performance from Knightsbridge. This is a horse we've talked about a lot on these airwaves. I at some point on our Racing with Roman show, Larry Roman had mentioned the idea that he thought this year Knightsbridge would be better than Sovereignty. And I think I might have even laughed when he said that, just thinking it was such a bold statement. Nobody's laughing now. Not after the 122 buyer speed figure that Knightsbridge put up. How good is this horse? What's his ceiling, JK?
Well, I think he's pretty good. I mean, I guess I need one more sample to the sample size to understand how good he really is. But I will say this: where the hell was he at when I needed him in the pick six on Derby Day when T.O. Elvis ran off the screen? Where was this version of Knightsbridge? Yeah, I mean, I do think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I think before this race, they were planning on maybe the 4-go, but now he's got this 2-turn performance. Where do they go with him here? The Whitney probably too quick to come back. Do you want to jump from this to the 1.25 miles, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, where you're going to run into potentially your stablemate in Sovereignty? Do you want to point to a race like the Dirt Mile? If so, how are you going to get there? Because if you're going to go that way, I don't see that big of a deal with going back to the 7 furlongs with a 4-go. Are you trying to make a stallion? Because the 4-go certainly helps. I don't know. I think Bill Mott's got some deciding to do, and we'll see what he decides to do. But I'm not really sure where he's going to end up next. But he's going to end up, I would imagine the race will have a grade 1 next to it.
One more thing on Knightsbridge before we move on. We referenced the Matisse brothers, Duke and Paul, plenty on this show. Of course, Duke has his own handicapping website now, dukespicks.com, that folks can check out. But one of the concepts I've learned from them, and I know you have too, is the idea of the scramble, that difficult race that requires a certain, I don't know how I want to even describe it, but like a certain level of ability where a horse can find a way to get it done when things aren't all his way. I guess you could argue we haven't seen that yet from Knightsbridge. How do you think he'll perform when he gets to a scramble? Can we see this version of him under tougher circumstances?
Well, see, the thing is, I mean, to me, if you're running 122s and say you're getting everything your own way with a 122, and say that you get into a scramble and shucks, that really took its toll on you, run a 110, well, that could still be good enough. So
right.
Let's see what happens with him. I mean, I wonder, it's just, I just wonder, like, what woke him up? When you look at the past performances, is it the 9 furlongs that woke him up? And we had a bunch of races at a mile. Those were all pretty good. Maybe he wants to go longer. I think that I am 100% satisfied not knowing exactly who Knightsbridge is in his next start. And I'm completely okay with allowing my definitive definition of who he is to be expressed in the next round of like the Breeders' Cup race, right? So whatever happens next time, I'm going to allow that to be. I don't need to be right now. I don't need to know he's the fastest horse in the world now. If he proves that to me in his next start, then I'm willing to ride that to the Breeders' Cup, because that's where it can be a more lucrative opinion. So I'm just going to kind of reserve the right to figure out who the hell he is.
Let's move on to action in your backyard up in Saratoga. The Diana, obviously, Chad Brown had a strong hand going in, and that's the way it played out on the track. I was very enthusiastic about Cathedral in this race, actually, JK, but I thought she really wanted that firm ground. I got a little less enthusiastic as we got closer to post. It played out. And you know what? I will highlight this one more thing about it, because everybody always wants to point out when the longer price of a 4-horse entry wins. They didn't come in price order, the Brown contingent in this race, but it was pretty close.
I find that to be just the silliest thing people get so worked up about. They've unveiled some conspiracy theory. Here's the thing: there's turf racing is very unique, right? There's a couple of things that happen in turf racing. I think more than dirt, turf racing has specialists at certain distances, right? There's certain horses that are much better at a mile and they are at a mile and an eighth. And there's horses that are better at a mile and a half, mile and a quarter, and they are at a mile and an eighth or a mile, right? I think that the differentiation between the distances horses want is different. So a lot of times when he has 4 horses in the race, some of them are coming from different distances. Some of them like certain distances more. So sometimes a lot of the nuance can get lost in the distance. Also the ground, okay? How much moisture is in the ground, how firm the ground is. And then there's also the dynamics of the race, the pace, the configuration of the track. All of those things come into play. So while we as the public think we're smart, and we're only smart 30% of the time, we come up with who the favorite is based on our best accumulation of all of those factors. It's entirely possible that we can misread who is better at a certain situation that today brings, which can allow a horse to go off at 6-1. And it's not because, the other Chad Brown. I think that there's other circumstances. Winning that race 11 times to me is pretty damn impressive. You think about the races that Chad's won on multiple occasions, but he hasn't just had success in that race as it pertains to, female turf horses, right? Think about his success in the Matriarch, his success in the Beverly D, his success in the 2 races, the First Lady and the Ginny Wiley in the QE2 at Keeneland. It's everywhere that he has that type of domination of understanding what types of horses run well. He obviously gets those types of horses too. So that's what the story was about me. I mean, Kathy and Marissa was impressive and she was good, but I think the real star of the show is likely Chad. And it feels like at the end of the day, this race is likely to get renamed, right? I mean, when it's all said and done, doesn't it feel like when he's got 20 wins in it, or 21 or 22 or whatever it ends up being, he's still relatively young from in trainer age. And so that's kind of cool. The other thing I'll say is, I was just like looking, I did a little thing with a video with Chad the other day, and I was like looking through. I mean, he's pretty close to the cycle in the Breeders' Cup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think he's won 9 of the 14. Obviously, there's been some that have been added a little bit, but he's not too far off. He's got the turf sprint, the juvenile, the turf, the mile, the juvenile turf, filly and mare sprint, filly and mare turf, juvenile fillies turf, the classic. You know, he needs the sprint, the juvenile, which he probably would have got with
No,
Jack
he won the
Christopher.
juvenile. He won the juvenile with good magic, didn't he?
He won the juvenile with good magic.
Yeah.
Maybe that one's not listed here. Anyways, he's pretty close. He's getting close to the cycle. That's pretty impressive.
A story to follow for sure in the coming years. 1, 2, 3 for Chad Brown in the Diana. Let's look forwards now, my friend, to a couple of races that we've got coming up. Grade 1 action coming up this weekend. We'll keep it in Saratoga for a starter. Why not? And Chad Brown, majorly represented in this coaching club, American Oaks. It's kind of cool when you get in this race the Acorn winner and you get the Oaks winner in always a runner. I guess we'll start there. It felt like Counting Stars beat Always a Runner on the square last time, but when I look at their body of work, it just feels to me like I'm not willing to give up on the idea that Always a Runner could maybe reverse that form this time around. Looks like they're both training pretty well coming into this race, but we'll talk about this race as if it's a head-to-head first. Who do you prefer between those two?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Always a Runner is interesting in the fact that, you know, I mean, maybe the Kentucky Oaks took a little out of her. She was lightly raced. You know, Chad had mentioned that she was just a little kind of like, I think he used the word buzzy, like leading up to the race, just a little bit kind of, you know, on the muscle a little bit more aggressive than normal. And I think that he feels pretty confident that he's made some adjustments in the morning to have her not be so buzzy this time around. He seemed pretty confident that she's going to run back to maybe her Kentucky Oaks more so than her last race. So I guess really it becomes about what the prices of these two horses are. I would imagine after Counting Stars' performance last time, they probably end up being pretty close in price. People might gravitate towards Counting Stars for recency, but who knows? Maybe they'll go back to Always a Runner. Either way, I think you should get a pretty square price on either one of them if you prefer them. And I like the fact that Always a Runner is outside of Counting Stars this time around as well. So of the two, I would probably go with Always a Runner. But I do think that Larascas and Directive have both shown enough talent that they could progressively take another step forward and kind of shock some of the horses that have been doing a majority of this 3-year-old running.
I do want to pick Larascas, I think, in the race, JK. And she's just so unexposed. Will Walden's done such a great job these last few years. She's theoretically slower than these top ones, and we'll get to Zany, too, in a minute. But I just feel like she's probably ready to take another step forward. And what I've seen with her in her races, I just think she's got that progressive profile where I assume she's got to be a price. I mean, I'm not interested in her at the same price as these others, but if she could be more of a mid-price, she's definitely one that I would want on side. And it sounds like you agree. You think Larascas could maybe win this thing.
Yeah, I mean, she has to jump up, but that's the nature of 3-year-old fillies that are in this time of the year, even 3-year-old colts, right? You saw it at the Haskell with Baby Vino. There's stages and levels to these 3-year-olds where we have the 2-year-olds turning 3 at the beginning of the year. Who's going to go on? Who's going to show up? Then we have the ones who's going to be the Derby type, who's going to be the Triple Crown type, who's going to be now. Then you kind of turn your attention to, well, who's going to be the summer type? There's different levels to it. And for me, while Always a Runner and Counting Stars checked both of those boxes in that Triple Crown arena, now it's time for the summer horses. Are those Triple Crown horses going to continue to improve? Are they going to kind of reassert their dominance? Or is it now at time for a new one to jump into the mix, which we've often seen around this time of year? So they certainly would have to get better to beat the top two, but I don't think they're too far off.
Let's talk about Zany for a minute. I mean, this was one you and I think, both liked so much for the Oaks. She's been rebooted at this point. What kind of opportunity do you give her to reassert herself as one of the best of her generation?
Yeah, you know, she's. I should probably think about a name for this, but she's the type of horse that when I open up the workout report for Saturday, I don't care what the reason I opened it, whether I'm on the first race or what. I'm going to go straight to this race and go straight to Zany and look for B pluses and A minuses. And if she has them, there's an opportunity for her to kind of go back to being who she was. But if she's got a bunch of B minuses, a bunch of E's, then I'll start to kind of question the direction she's going.
We've got just a minute left in the show, JK. want to tell folks very quickly about the ITM Horse Player Tour. It's back on Friday with a lineup including racing from Saratoga and Del Mar. Go to horseplayers.com. $20 to play. You finish in the top 4 any week. You qualify for our playoffs where you can win a $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat, and it's also a regular qualifier into the Saturday game. I do want to get your quick take on this year's Bing Crosby. Really interesting race. We've got Win and You're In stakes for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and an interesting field with runners like Maximum Bourbon off 2 big speed figures. You've got Stronghold trying to show what he's all about. Cornucopian, another runner, sure to take a lot of money in here. And an old friend in Dr. Venkman, who I think might just get the best trip of all, sitting in behind a bunch of runners who I think all want the same trip. Who wins the Bing Crosby, my friend?
Yeah, but I thought Cornucopian's race in the Aristides was pointing that he could have a big year sprinting. I like where he draws in here. He's another one that I would have loved to have checked out the workout report, but he's been working at Churchill, which I think is interesting. With it seems like Baffert's, kind of got like a new second home. Wish he'd keep coming east and come hang out with us a little bit more often. But Cornucopian's where my eyes go initially. When these Baffert horses that have a lot of talent, have that stamina, kind of hone in on being sprinters, they can sometimes be very, very difficult to beat. But a wide open race, but my eyes initially go towards Cornucopian.
Great stuff, JK. Appreciate catching up with you. We'll have you back later in the week. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.